Teresa, the floor is yours.
Okay. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Well, Happy New Year, everyone, and welcome to 2021. We made it. 2020 was indeed a challenging year, to say the least, but we all have soldiered on and adopted new normals and prayed for hopefulness and healing for the country while ringing in another new year. Hope is on the horizon despite the pandemic rising to new levels, the starting round of vaccines, and an optimistic return to resuming business pre-COVID levels are a welcome sigh of relief. To lighten all of our heavy laden loads, for today's webinar, we thought we would pivot slightly from our regular workshop series and provide our members and non-members with an opportunity to travel abroad and learn about the Caribbean islands, the U.S. Virgin Islands to be specific. How apropos, since it's 30 degrees here in the East Coast, and as our keynote speaker has let us know, it's going to probably go up well into the 80s where she is. We're going to, since it's 30 degrees here in the East Coast, there's several travel restrictions are in place and everyone wants to get away right now. We're going to kick off the Women in Commercial programming, and we bring you your passport to the Caribbean islands, a commercial real estate conversation with the U.S. Virgin Islands. But before we begin, let us get some housekeeping rules out of the way so that we can begin our program and start the webinar on time and end on time. For everyone's purposes, they need to know that this webinar is being recorded. For those who cannot join us, they can recapture the webinar via our HGAR website 24 to 48 hours after this recording. Your chat feature has been disabled. You will, however, be able to ask questions using the Q&A feature, which will remain active throughout the webinar and will be monitored by our HGAR staff, Gary Connolly, Director of MLS and Information Systems. Toward the end of our program, our guest moderator, Clayton Jeffrey, will field additional questions from our audience and answers from our guest panelists. As always, we like to extend our thanks and appreciation to HGAR CEO Richard Haggerty, HGAR and CID President, Senior Vice President and Managing Director of RM Friedland, John Barrett, and new to us from the Bronx Board of Realtors and an HGAR Director of Advocacy, Commercial, and Legislative Issues, Ellie Rodriguez, and our very own HGAR new President, Crystal Hawkins-Siska, for all their continued support and encouragement for these series of workshops. So moving forward, we'd like to also thank our sponsor for today's Zoom webinar, Allen Block Insurance. Originally, we had mother and daughter team, Joanne Murray and Laura Murray. But however, Laura went into labor and we understand that there is going to be a new bouncing baby boy who will be born hopefully sometime today. So we want to send out our prayers and warm wishes for a healthy delivery and for Laura to be okay and for grandma who's going to be right there by her side. So pitch hitting for us today is Neil Bush. And a brief bio about Neil. Neil has been with Allen Block Insurance since 1987. Neil grew up in Somers, New York, and graduated from the University of Delaware with a Bachelor of Science degree in economics. In his position as Vice President of Personal Lines, Neil focuses on bringing new business to the agency, working with new clients to ensure that their needs are met. He is always on the lookout for new insurance product offerings that could benefit the agency's customer base. Neil also manages sales and marketing for the personal lines department, coordinating with the insurance carriers to straighten and maintain those relationships. He serves on the board of directors for the Independent Insurance Agents of Westchester County. And he's a member of the Business Network International for more than 20 years and has been involved with many insurance company agent and advisory council. He is a past president and current member of the Elmsford Rotary Club and is a member of the Tarrytown Sleepy Hollow Chamber of Commerce. Outside of his professional work, Neil is also a former coach with the TNT Little League Baseball and a Cub Scout pack leader. He is an avid golfer and likes to spend his free time with his family and friends. Neil, would you please say a few words about Allen Block Insurance?
Thank you, Teresa. We're really excited to sponsor today's program. It's a little different than what we're used to, and I'm sure you'll find it all very informative and probably a lot of fun hearing about what's going on in the Virgin Islands. I'm in personal lines, but I wanted to let everyone know that we have a full commercial department, which Laura runs. She, as you know, is not able to join us today. But we've been in Tarrytown for over 60 years. We represent over 12 major national and regional insurance carriers. It gives us a lot of flexibility to work with our clients to put the best insurance program together. We can provide a full range of products to insure commercial property, provide general liability, and what's been really on the radar this year, we can provide cyber protection for businesses as well. So if any of you are interested, have a conversation with Laura or one of her staff, and they'll be able to go through all the different particulars on that. The other thing I wanted to reemphasize is we handle flood insurance, and not just for residential properties, but if you have a business that would like to know, or before going into a commercial property, if their property would be affected by flooding, we'll be glad to run a flood zone determination and use some of our resources to help guide them. Just simply email us the address and a contact for you, and we can get that for you probably within a few minutes if it has to be manually mapped in 24 hours. So we look forward to serving you in 2021 and all the best for the new year. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much, Neil. We really appreciate it. And we thank you for supporting the Women in Commercial Workshop Initiative. Moving on, serving as our guest moderator for today is my fellow countryman from the island of Trinidad and Tobago and colleague, Clayton Jeffrey, associate broker of Keller Williams NY Realty. Some background on Clayton. Clayton was born and raised in Trinidad and Tobago. Clayton migrated to the United States some 40 years ago and has made Westchester County his home. He has been working as a real estate professional for the past 26 years, 21 as a sales associate and 5 years as a real estate sales manager. While working as an office manager for Coldwell Banker in 2008, he oversaw marketing, accounting, support staff, and training, as well as retaining agents. After taking on this position, the market unfortunately crashed. However, Clayton was so resourceful, thanks to starting a commercial real estate division, he turned a satellite office into a successful and profitable office at the turn of the market. As Clayton states, my highest goal in life is to feel good and uplift others. That is why a real estate career is such a natural fit, and he is excellent at it. Clayton is a leading top producer in his market and consistently ranked in the top 1% of sales agents. As a professional residential and commercial realtor, he has a dedicated client base while ensuring multiple referrals from all over the country. Clayton attributes his success to his immeasurable training, marketing, advertising, strategies, and knowledge of the market. Outside of real estate, Clayton takes pride in giving back to the community and serve on the New Rochelle Chamber of Commerce, as well as the New Rochelle Heights Historical Society and an HDR Board of Directors. We want to give a warm round of applause and thank you for Clayton Jeffrey for serving as guest moderator for today. So thank you, Clayton, and welcome. This is your first time under Women in Commercial Real Estate, and we so appreciate you wanting to come and support us and join us as guest moderator. I'm now going to introduce, without further ado, and give some kudos to our keynote speaker, Ms. Tanya Van Blake Coleman. She's from the U.S. Virgin Islands. Some information on Ms. Coleman. Tanya started her career in real estate with RE/MAX in St. Thomas and maintained a production rate that established her as a member of the President's Club from 2005 to 2009. Since Virgin Island real estate has been the center of her life since 2004, Tanya is a strong believer in continuing education and self-improvement. Within the first year of practice, Tanya attained the Graduate Realtors Institute, GRI designation. Tanya subsequently obtained a broker's license and opened her own brokerage firm in February of 2010, known as the Van Blake Coleman Realty, which offers buyers and sellers representation in residential and commercial sales. Tanya is constantly striving to stay abreast of market trends. So she completed the e-program certification and attained the designation of a Certified International Property Specialist, CIPS, expanding her focus to a global level, and attained the Certified Residential Specialist designation, all while honing her skills in guiding sellers in marketing their properties as either investment properties or primary residence in the U.S. Virgin Islands. Tanya served on the professional standards and the grievance committees. She remained engaged as an active member of the St. Thomas Board of Realtors, serving as the president of the St. Thomas Board in 2012 and 2013 as president of the Virgin Islands Territorial Association of Realtors in 2014 and 2015, and as a state president in 2016. Again, participating at the national level, Tanya served on the Housing Committee, the Multiple Listing Committee, the Broker Involvement Committee, and served as vice chair of the Small Board Idea Exchange for NAR in 2015. In 2014, Tanya's brokerage company, Van Blake Coleman Realty, became a certified provider for the Economic Development Authority clients, formerly known as the Economic Development Commission. The EDA is an entity that screens and facilitates the entrance of new business and entities into the territory of the U.S. Virgin Islands. These companies bring new opportunities and employment to the territory. In exchange, they receive tax benefits and incentives. Tanya's company maintains this certification to date. For many years, Tanya was active with the Downtown Revitalization Program, a grassroots group determined to preserve and stimulate the territory's business centers and economy. The Historical Society is another interest where she was an active member and served on the board for Habitat for the Humanity. Tanya was also the first broker to film the wildly successful and popular HGTV series House Hunters International in St. Thomas. She remained involved with the film industry for several years thereafter. Tanya grew up in a family where her father's career was with the State Department and travel was extensive. So relocation is definitely in her blood. Tanya has lived in various places on the mainland, as well as spending her formative years in West Africa. The territory of the U.S. Virgin Islands was behind the curve with processing of foreclosures and other real estate-owned properties. Tanya was involved with processing the initial wave of foreclosures after two Category 5 hurricanes, Irma and Maria, better known as Maria. Whether you're moving from New York to Pelican Point, from Anna's Retreat to Miami, or anywhere and points in between as a family or business, Tanya's pledge to her clients is the personal service they deserve with the highest level of integrity. And having said all of that, we welcome you, Tanya. We give a round of applause for you taking time out of your busy schedule to come and join us. And with that, Mr. Jeffrey, the floor is yours. You can begin the
Thank you very much. First, let me thank the woman in commercial for inviting me to moderate this webinar. I truly do appreciate you. Tanya, welcome aboard.
Thank
You're
you.
among friends, so let's just have some fun today, okay?
Okay, we can do that.
Good. Let's get a little more about you for the audience. You lived on the mainland. Where and what did you do on the mainland?
I was born in Cobleskill, New York, which is way upstate New York. I'm very familiar with the cold weather we were discussing earlier because it gets huge over by Albany and Schenectady. So lots of snow and lots of cold up that way. At a young age, my father went back and got a graduate degree at Cornell, and then we went to Nigeria for a number of years. So my formative years were spent in West Africa and came back and forth until I was in my early 20s. Well, I came back to go to college, obviously, finish school and go to college. I actually came back in my junior year of high school, so it wasn't college. I went to prep school near Philadelphia, West Town, and finished up high school and then went to college in upstate New York also. So I'm very familiar with cold weather, didn't care for it at all, loved having the opportunity to come here and enjoy the tropics once again. So, And I want to
Okay.
thank everyone for this opportunity. It's an amazing opportunity and I really appreciate it.
Awesome. We're happy to have you. But we're going to jump right into the program by me throwing my intelligence under the bus. My formal education is in the Caribbean. I grew up on the island of Tobago. So the first 20 years, my formal education is from there. I studied the British system. One of my favorite topics was Caribbean history. Yet all my life, I thought the U.S. Virgin Islands were made up of 3 islands. How many islands are there in the?
I actually did some additional research since we originally talked about, there's actually a total of 90. There are 3 main islands, but there are many smaller islands and cays, as they call them. The territory consists of the 3 main islands are St. Thomas, St. Croix, and St. John. St. Croix is the largest of the 3 islands, and it consists of 84.17 square miles and has a population, and all population statistics that I'm quoting will be from the 2010 census. There are 50,601 people on St. Croix. Mount Eagle is their high spot on the island. It's 1,165 feet high. Historically, it has more real industry on St. Croix. So they have oil refineries, rum factories, casinos, hotels, but it's much more industrial and farming. It has an agricultural aspect to it. Also, there are farms and people are into growing food for production as well as health. There are many industries on St. Thomas. St. Thomas is a territorial capital. Charlotte Amalie, the city, and it's the 2nd largest island. There's 32 square miles on St. Thomas, and hospitality is a large part of our economy, and luxury island items also, the selling of jewelry, things like that. Population is 51,634. Crown Mountain is our high peak, 1,555 feet. St. John is the smallest of the 3 islands and has a population of 4,170. It's 19 square miles. More than half of the island has been a national park. It was donated by Rockefeller back in 1956, an excellent year. I'm partial to it. And was donated through an organization of Jackson Hole, Inc. 5,000 acres of St. John is National Park Service. And then later, the U.S. Congress passed legislation to create the Virgin Island Land Park. And just recently, like last week, Donald Sussman donated an additional island, Mingo Cay, which is nearly 50 acres. And its situation is 2 miles off the northwest coast of St. John. And it's become part of the Trust of the Virgin Islands lands also. And so these areas can never be sold. And I say all of that because it separates St. John from the other 2 islands in that so much of it can never be developed. And that's the little portion of the island that can be sold is sold at a premium because so much of it can't ever be sold or developed. So there's another island, Water Island. President-elect Biden, his brother, owns a home there. St. John and Water Island, you cannot reach without a boat. You can fly into St. Croix and St. Thomas, but you have to either take a ferry from the larger islands to the smaller islands. And there's a water taxi that runs from St. Thomas over to Water Island pretty much on the hour. And most people drive golf carts over there, being ecologically conscious, not wanting to pollute. And it's just small. And I think getting a car physically to Water Island would be very difficult. You'd have to hire a private barge to get it over. So I think that's why most people do golf carts out there. Hassel Island was originally connected and part of St. Thomas, but it created the connection between the 2 islands, created a swampy area that caused a typhoid epidemic a long time ago, and they were dredged apart. They dredged a channel between the two, separating the two islands. It was originally used for refurbishing military ships and repairing them, but no longer any. There's, I think, one house there actually used it when they shot Real World, I think it was, over there. There's one house that's over there. The rest of it is ruins and the remains of the refurbishing of ships, the facility that they were pulling ships out of the water and fixing them there. There's a number of smaller islands, like I said, a total of 90. Inner and Outer Brass, Little and Big Hans Lalik, Thatch Cay, Labango, and we have some more infamous islands due to Mr. Epstein, the Greater St. James and Little St. James. I think he owned one of them. I'm not sure it was Great St. James or Little, I think it was Little St. James. But anyway, like I said, we've had some really good philanthropists that have done wonderful things for the islands and the territory. And we're part of the Lesser Antilles. When you look on the map, we are south and east of Miami and Santo Domingo and Puerto Rico, just to give you an orientation, and north and west of places like Trinidad and South America. Well, South America goes way over farther west than we would. But anyway, that gives you an idea of the geographical setup.
Thank you, and we appreciate that. You mentioned Donald Sussman donating his island, and part of it is preserved. Does that mean most of those islands are privately owned?
A number of them are, I won't say most of them are, but a number of them are. And he has owned it for, I think, 17 years, 17 to 20 years, somewhere in there, and enjoyed them. Initially purchased it with a trust out of Jackson Hole, and enjoyed it for many years, and just wanted to make sure that it was preserved and not developed. And it also included some underground territory, also underwater, to make sure that they're protected. Those breeding grounds for fish and wildlife was preserved without being disturbed.
Excellent. You mentioned Hassel Island as being a base for refurbishing ships during the military years. How long ago was that, and are there opportunities for investment there at this time? I think Tanya's frozen.
I think so too. Okay, so I think she is disconnected and will reconnect. Please bear with us.
Absolutely. So while we wait for Tanya to get back in, anybody have any questions about what we've heard so far about the islands?
So one question is medical facilities and hospitals.
Yes, and I've made a note to ask her about it because healthcare in the Caribbean is not what it is here on the mainland. It's one of the main reasons I won't relocate home. So we're gonna leave that up for Tanya. The island I'm from in Tobago, hospital is a garden style complex on the top of a hill overlooking the ocean. And the location is gorgeous. But the kind of professionals you need to run them, they all come to the States, they study and they stay here because they make the most money.
Right. I think most of the hospitals, the major hospitals, would be on the main island of St. Thomas, but to do anything like in depth, like let's say if you have cancer or something like that, you would probably have to fly to the island of Puerto Rico, is my understanding of it. But Tanya is more of an expert than I.
So when we get her back on, we will jump straight into that one.
Okay.
Yep.
Audio is connecting as we speak.
Good. As they say in the island, everything would be well in due time. We are
Or
all
something.
islanders today.
It might have something to do with the trade winds.
True.
Mm.
Another question was asked was if we can ask her when she's back how she does listings. Because the person who asked the question was not sure they have an MLS at this time. So how is it that they're sharing information with each other?
Okay, great. She did mention that she worked on the board for a while, so there is a board of realtors.
Right, but I'm not sure if there's an MLS.
There we go. I got you. Hear you. Can you,
Yay, Tanya's back.
Awesome.
can you hear me?
Yes,
Yes,
we can.
Yes.
So
Okay.
let's jump right
That's
back.
another,
Yeah,
I'm
go
sorry,
ahead.
that's another issue we have in the Virgin Islands is connectivity, and things don't always work as you plan. They're doing a lot of upgrades to our systems after the hurricane, even though Irma Maria was in 2017. We now have a lot of construction crews that are rerunning our 5G lines in the roads and doing a lot of upgrades to our infrastructure on the island is what they're restoring right now. So
Awesome.
shall I just pick up where I was?
While you were gone, we had two questions. We can move on. I think we will
Okay.
finish with the islands, correct?
Right. I was going to go into a little bit of the history
Mm-hmm.
if you want to.
Go for it.
Okay. The original inhabitants were Siboney and Arawak and Carib people. Christopher Columbus stumbled upon us in 1493 on his second voyage to the New World. Denmark and Norway attempted to settle us in 1665, but failed. The Dutch Reformed Church was established and still exists until today, and we have the longest continuously operating synagogue in the United States and its external territories. And that's located on St. Thomas. The Danes were more successful in 1671 in settling, and in 1673, the first slave ships arrived and St. Thomas became a slave market. St. Thomas was granted free port status, and that means that it's a special economic zone where they can import things, refurbish them, remanufacture, and ship them out without having customs or duty tax on them. So it was a free-for-all for a long time, as far as people would come from around the world to buy luxury items like crystal and china and furs and jewelry. Jewelry is still a big draw here, but you don't see as much of the crystal and china and things like that. It is sold here, but it's not as big as a draw as the jewelry is.
So does the free trade zone still exist?
It is not. They're not in the same way that it did before. It's curtailed. You do pay taxes, duty and taxes, bringing things in here now. 1860, during the American Civil War and its aftermath, the United States government considered buying the island from Denmark. They offered $7.5 million. So this is the first real estate transaction officially. And they turned it down because it didn't gain any legislative support on the bid. And in 1917, the Virgin Islands was purchased by the United States for $25 million in gold. They should have took the 7.5. You know, that afterthought is always, hindsight is 2020. And that would be like 499 million in gold today. The ceremony took place on March 31st, 1917 at the Reformed Church that I mentioned. Citizens gained U.S. residency officially in 1927. Department of Interior took control of the territory in 1931. The Organic Act granted the territory status, and the Senate came into existence with full self-rule or home rule achieved in 1970. They created Democratic and Republican parties at that time, but we still don't have a presidential vote here in the Virgin Islands. So that would be nice. I mean, we have every other responsibility that I think we should have a presidential vote as well. Our Senator Stacey Plaskett has been active in this whole thing that's going on in DC. We won't go into politics at this point. Anyway, historical hurricanes. Hugo in 1989. Some 6 years later, there was Luis in Maryland. That was 1995. And then 22 years later, Irma and Maria hit. I think they were Category 5 hurricanes back to back within about a week of each other. And we're still recuperating from that storm. We've come a long, long way, but you still see effects of it. Proximity to the mainland has been very good to us because a lot of people can come down with a quick plane ride or sail down and enjoy our waters and our beaches. And it's just been an easy way for people to come down. Many people maintain second homes here for seasonal. The seasonality of people coming here impact our economy in a positive way. There's a lot of money that comes into the territory during those times. And cruise ships also frequent our port, at least they did until COVID-19. They haven't been here for a while now. And I'm making very general and sweeping statements, but each island has its own personality. I think I touched on that before. St. John never being able to be developed is much more exclusive, very pristine, a lot of hiking and camping and things like that. St. Croix is more earthy also in that we do have farms, actual farms, and industry as well. St. Thomas is very urban in my opinion. It reminds me a lot of New York City. The business atmosphere is fast paced, and if you don't pay attention, you will be left behind. So the first question I think you all posed to me was, who can buy land here or property here? And that is that anyone from
Tanya, before you go on, I have a question about those islands. St. Croix is the biggest one.
Yes, it is,
correct?
physically. Yes.
And St. Thomas is a little more than a third of its size, yet it's more populated. Which is more attractive for tourists and which is more attractive to investors?
I think it depends upon the tourist and the investor. If tourists like to have more quietness and seclusion, then St. Croix would be it. If you enjoy a faster lifestyle they're not open now, clubs and bars and restaurants, although St. Croix has its share of those too, but they're much more spread out on St. Croix than they are in St. Thomas. It's concentrated. So it just depends upon what you like. And like I said, St. John is really for somebody who's looking for rest and relaxation or hiking and camping, that type of thing.
Okay, so with your knowledge of the island, if you were to invest in condos for rentals to tourists, which island will you invest your money in?
I'm partial to St. Thomas.
And why is that?
Because there's many more flights that come into St. Thomas than on St. Croix, even though they have an airport. And the accessibility, because it is a smaller island, you don't have to travel as far to get to everything here. There's a larger concentration of people, so there's a larger concentration of services also.
Awesome. While you were gone, we had two questions, and I would love to address them. What is healthcare and hospitals like?
I was going to get to that. Healthcare and hospitals are, I want to say, a mixed bag. We have hospitals on St. Thomas and St. John. They are dated. The facilities are dated. We have an influx of part-time or temporary, like nurses and doctors that come through and work for 3 or 4 months and then go back. There are people who go out. There's and get their degrees, their medical degrees, their nursing degrees, and come back and work here. A lot of them stay on the mainland because there's more opportunity for them there. So healthcare is, and I had my own experience. I had heard many things, and I've actually used the healthcare facilities here and had very positive experiences both times. I had some surgery that was scheduled and planned. It was a wonderful experience. The surgeons were very practiced, very skilled people, did a wonderful job. I have to say, when the nurse told me that I could go in the bathroom and take a shower, I turned on the water and the water was rusty, and I said, I'll wait till I get home. Thank you very much. So that the infrastructure of the hospital itself is old, is basically what I'm saying with that. And then I don't know if you can see, I have scars. I fell on a pickaxe, believe it or not, and had to go into the emergency room. I don't even know, they told me there were 20 some stitches in the exterior. There's 3 layers to your face. And they didn't count the interior layers. My bridge of my nose was broken. They patched me up and sent me home, and I did the aftercare, the care in the emergency was all very excellent. So I don't have anything negative to say. I mean, I wouldn't want to be chronically long-term ill and have to be in and out of the hospital on a regular basis because there is low staffing. It's just hard to get people to come and stay here, and they have to go to the mainland for their training. They started to open a medical school here. We have entry-level nursing programs at the university now, and they were going to start a medical school here. They built the first building, and then Maria hit. So then we went into full recovery, and so I think the medical school is on hold. There is a medical school in St. Kitts, and there's a veterinarian school on St. Kitts, Down Island, and we do get people trained there in both of those areas. And the students are excellent, and they produce excellent doctors. So I think
Awesome.
That's a good summary.
I hope they revisit that medical school, because the medical school in Grenada is doing awesome.
Is it? Yeah. I'm not surprised.
Moving along, we're getting into the real estate part of it. Thank you for giving us an introduction to the islands. The next question was, we know you have a board of realtors because you served on it. Thank you very much. I know how hard it is. We appreciate your service, and for all the members of that volunteer their time on the board, on the call, we really do appreciate you. That said, on the island, how do you share your data? Is there MLS?
There is an MLS, and because St. Croix and St. Thomas used to be one board, our data is connected. St. John has always stayed separated, and they guard their potential sales because there are so few that happen, I think, is one of the reasons. So you have to join the separate board of St. John's board to have access to their MLS. And like I said, by default, St. Croix and St. Thomas's are one database, but it is a separate board on St. Croix.
Awesome. Moving ahead in the program, what is the real estate market like on the Virgin Islands, and what's the process for sales that you deal with daily and investors coming in from the mainland?
Okay, the market is hot.
Really?
We have little inventory and lots of demand. So, and things that are under $1 million get snapped up pretty quickly, unless they're just like hurricane damaged house with no roof and the plumbing sticking out of the wall. And that might take a longer period of time because investors are the kind of people that buy those houses, and they're a little more cautious. But if you get a livable house from 500,000 to $1 million, it does not stay on the market long at all. So it's a good thing.
Awesome. And what's the process for someone leaving the mainland to buy there in St. Thomas?
It's probably the most important thing they need to do is to realize the price point that they're gonna have to. I talked to somebody yesterday and they were like, well, we want a 3-bedroom house and we want to spend about 150,000. It's like, not gonna happen here. So, and they wanted something move-in ready. It's like, that's not going to happen here. And I'd actually sent them to a mortgage broker first, obviously, what we all do to make sure they're qualified to buy anything. And then when she came with her number and even going over to St. Croix, which tends to be a little less expensive, it would be a challenge. They may be able to find something there, but it's not going to be that waterfront villa that they're dreaming of.
Awesome.
So, yeah.
What's the average price for that waterfront villa we all dream of?
Ooh, I would say waterfront, a couple of million.
Nice.
Yeah. But those are mostly also investment properties. I was going to get into that in that most people that have second homes here or own those villas, they live primarily someplace else more often than not, and they rent them off and they become commercial and investment properties, and it helps defray the cost and the maintenance of them.
Yeah.
Who are your major investors? Are they from the mainland? Most of the Caribbean, most of the independent Caribbean islands, the majority of their investors come from Europe, especially Germany. Who are the major investors there on your island?
Mostly U.S. citizens. We do have some foreign people, and we have some Europeans. There's still a strong connection with Denmark. The Danish and Scandinavian countries, they're not buying as much. The cultures are such that it's a little hard for them to adjust to the easier, slower pace of life here. So that if they have history here with families, they come and visit and hike and, enjoy all the outdoor sports and things like that, but tend not to be the majority of investors that come to buy property here.
Excellent. Here in the New York metro area, we need attorneys to close transactions. The rest of the country have the luxury of escrow companies. What's the process on your island?
Mostly attorneys. There's only one person that I know that does closing that is not a licensed attorney, and I'm not sure how he's doing it, but he's been doing it for a very long time. So most of the time it is attorneys.
Okay, great. You mentioned the 2 hurricanes. How between the 2 hurricanes and then COVID hit, how does that affect the economy and the investment opportunities?
Well, it increased the investment opportunities because people were buying damaged houses and rehabbing and reselling them. The hurricanes were, like I said, infrastructure. We're down to infrastructure. You still can find hurricane damaged houses, but they're not as frequent, or people are continuing to work on them. We're down to more cosmetic things, reconfiguring a pond if you had a fountain or something in your yard, as opposed to your roof and your windows and that type of things. Most people have progressed beyond that. Saying that, though, my neighbor's house directly across the street has remains of a tarp, has been essentially gutted, and is not habitable at the moment, directly across the street from me. And then the person kitty corner from me, their roof was damaged but did not go completely. And everybody's situation is different. Those people that didn't carry insurance are still waiting for some government funds to help them restore their homes. And it's slow in coming. So I hope I answered your question.
You've done very well. The hurricane was 5 years ago. So are we dealing with Caribbean time, seeing that the government still haven't reached some people? Is that normal?
Well, it's because they didn't have their own insurance policies. So they're waiting for the government to allot money for them. People who had insurance, which your mortgage company normally requires you to have. Unless you pay cash, obviously, then you should have some reserves to do your repairs. And those people that had insurance, they flew in adjusters from around the world, and they hired I was one of the people going out inspecting progress on the completion of construction, so that because they release the insurance money in increments as you progress with your repairs. And so in order to get paid, somebody had to come and inspect and see that you had indeed made some repairs, and then they would release additional funds, and then you'd have another inspection, so on, until you got the house refurbished. So, you know, those people who had private insurance, the condominiums were slower in processing things because they were large organizations. And so you had people waiting for the condo association waiting for the exterior of the building to be repaired. So a lot of the condos came on the market just recently because the association just finished their insurance claims and their repairs to the exterior of the building and the infrastructure for the complex. So I'm looking out the window at Mahogany Run condos, and they just had like 22 condos come on the market for sale pretty much simultaneously. And they're in different states of repair because sometimes the owners were working on the interior as they were working on the outside. So you may get a really, you know, decked out condo inside, and the buildings are all physically on the outside back together. Or you may be able to buy like a shell. The exterior has been restored, but the owner has chosen to leave it a blank slate so that you can finish it as you want it to be as a new owner. So there's a disparity in what you may get, but there is more and more condos that are coming on the market in mass, so to speak. 20 to us is mass.
Really? So with this kind of volume, it sounds like it's a great time to pick up a few condos on the island.
It is if you got deep pockets. Nobody's giving anything away.
Oh, so they're still selling them at market value.
Pretty much so, yes. And you have to realize
Okay.
those people have been paying association fees for the last however many years because they don't stop. They reduce them, but they don't stop. So they've still been investing in their property during the time that they haven't been able to use it.
Okay, one of the questions we had come in is, what are the requirements for non-citizen, non-US citizen investors? It's a three-part question. Is
Okay.
the EB5 program available on the island? And does the island qualify for 1031 exchanges?
Yes to both of them. So yes, definitely the EB visa is extended here through, and there's an organization called Economic Development Administration, and they should be your best friend whether you are from the mainland or any place else in the world, because there's very special benefits that are available to people. I'm trying to go to my page there, that they enjoy. And it's mostly tax benefits. And I'm trying to find the exact amounts. Pretty much your taxes are waived. Here we go. So 90% reduction in corporate income taxes. If you go through, this is the economic development for the territory. 90% of your income taxes at 4% are waived. 90% reduction in personal income taxes, 100% exemption from gross receipts. So if you have a business and you're making money, that's usually 5%. And also if you're making less than $250,000, you don't owe gross receipts tax. 100% exemption of business property tax and that's based on the value of the property. 100% exemption of excise taxes, and they are based on the invoices of such merchandise, plus a markup of 5% on the taxes. So, and the rate of tax depends upon the category and range from 2 to 25% for those taxes. Reduction in custom duty, and the standard is from 6% to 1%. tax reductions for royalty income from software development in the USVI and sold to non-US customers. You don't have to pay any royalty on those. Availability of rental space at below market rates in St. Thomas and St. Croix Industrial Park. It's a special, it's connected with the university to have those spaces made available to you as a company coming in.
Tanya,
So,
excuse me, was this part of your presentation that you sent to us? That you
Yes,
just read was, okay, so
Yes.
I don't know, Gary, if you can hear me, if you have that information, perhaps maybe for our audience, you can put that up so that they can see that information that she was talking about. I think it was her bullet points that she sent
yeah.
in.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, I think
and
it's easier for the audience to follow.
Right. The FERPTA is the foreign investor. When you sell a property on St. Thomas, you have to collect a tax. If you're a foreign investor and you bought a property and then you turn around and sell it, the buyer is obligated to make sure that that tax is collected. And if it's not collected and held in escrow until they figure out how much taxes they owe on it, the buyer can end up having to pay that tax. So there's a form that's called the FERPTA that you have to fill out if the owner is a foreign investor. So and then
okay,
all
and
of
let's
those,
clarify a foreign investor. Is that a non-US citizen?
exactly.
Oh,
Yes.
okay, great. Now, describe to the audience what a normal transaction is like for you. You can choose a commercial or residential, whichever is easier for you.
And they're kind of blurred because so many of the properties are used as rentals, either short-term or long-term rentals. So they become investment properties also. So the transactions are pretty similar. You know, obviously you take somebody else, they're looking for something in particular. You help them identify, pre-qualify them, all that good stuff beforehand before you go traipsing around, obviously. You help them identify the property that they're most interested in. You do due diligence with, having an attorney process the things and the attorneys really just do the closing, but you do your title search like you would on the mainland, which really does your background information on the property and make sure it's really free and clear, just like on the mainland. And once you're done and you do your inspections, from bound post inspections to if it's a building or the inspection of the systems of the building, the electric, we have cisterns here. There is portable water on the island, but most houses have cisterns. It collects water off of the roof and is stored in almost like a swimming pool underneath your house. It's a large area for storing water, and then it's pumped back and it's filtered and pumped back into the house for your use. So that's part of the inspection process, making sure all those systems are working properly, down to, the winders on the windows and locks and all that good stuff. You have it inspected. You can use that as a negotiation tool when you're buying, if you find things that are at issue. And if you're financing, you would have started the application process at the time of the execution of the contract. And then you go to closing after, your bound posts are done. You have to buy an as-built survey for a house that's sitting on property. You would not have an as-built survey for a condo because you're just really buying the interior. And land, you would have the bound posts exposed generally by the seller, and then a survey map. And you can pay for a topo if you're interested in getting the exact layout of the land that you're purchasing. It's good for building to know where the flat spot is, or where, there's a whole lot of rock here and this is not where you want to put the house, because you're going to have to use dynamite to get it flat enough to build. And some people incorporate rocks and things into their houses. I've been in people's houses and you go into the bathroom, there's this huge boulder which is pretty sometimes, but it takes up some square footage. So.
You mentioned REOs earlier. Are there opportunities for investing in REOs? There are people taking advantage of those opportunities.
They are, it's not an easy process. It sometimes takes very, very long to bring houses to closing. I have actually only in the years that I've been in real estate closed one, and that was actually really recently. And it was because there are holding companies that take them through the process and then market them. And so all of the paperwork and the title is cleared, because you can get into some difficulty if you try to buy those directly, because you may not have a clear title.
We can understand that challenge.
Yes.
So the holding companies clear the title up. Do they put them back on the open market, or is there opportunities to take your chances and buy them from these holding companies?
They usually clear the title first as part of their process, because it can be very complicated here. The other thing that complicates things here is, and a lot of REOs are related to it, is deaths of owners. If you have someone who passes away and they're on the title of the property, and they're trying very hard. In fact, Christmas Eve, the legislation was in session dealing with probate law here. It takes years, and each person inherits, and it just, I had a house that I listed, let's say 5 years ago, and the person came to me and I said, have you done probate here? She said, it's taken care of. I've got that covered. She was in New York, and the person that owned it had lived in New York, was from here. And I said, you do understand probate has to be done here. If probate was done in the States with other property, it doesn't clear the title here. Well, she assured me it had been done. Lo and behold, we get a buyer who was another relative. And when they took it to the lawyers, the probate had not been done on St. Thomas. She was a paralegal and thought she knew more than I did, and thought that the probate in New York was sufficient, and it was not. And so I would say 5 years later, that house still has not cleared probate, because they're ended up with, when people die, then their children inherit their portion of the house. And this is like $189,000 house, okay? So then their children inherit. So you had like 12 people that were heirs on this house. And then just before we were ready to close, when we got probate done here, another person died.
So that's the process all over again?
Exactly. Exactly. So word to the wise, put stuff in trusts so you don't have to go there. There's a clear path already mapped out with trusts, and you don't have to go through probate and stuff like that. And they're trying to reform the laws here, because it gets crazy. It really does.
Great. How about office buildings? You have them on the islands. Is there developments coming down the road? How did COVID and the hurricanes affect the office building market and industrial market?
The hurricanes closed down a lot, and people, the buildings in downtown and the urban areas tend to be older buildings, historic sometimes, so you have restrictions on them. They're hard to renovate and upgrade because they built to survive the hurricanes. Walls are sometimes made of stone and mortar together, and then plastered over the top to look like it's concrete. And so the walls are sometimes a foot thick, and trying to rewire or replumb buildings like that to modernize them can be very, very challenging, if not impossible at times. So historical properties, which are a lot of what's in the urban areas, are very difficult. They may have stairwells, but they don't have space for elevators. So they're not necessarily handicap accessible. So there are challenges there. I do have an associate that found a commercial space and developed it, and it has turned out, she did a shared workspace business. And it's, I think I sent pictures of her before and after. I don't know.
Do
if
you
have
want to put those on the screen now? Because I know that you have, it's 11 o'clock now, and we like to leave
Okay.
some time for the audience to ask
Okay.
questions. So if you want to go through your presentation, you can, and then Clayton can ask a few more questions,
Well, I
and
kind
then
of
we can kind of
jumped
wrap
off
up
of the
with you.
Okay.
Yeah, I think we
kind of
covered
jumped
everything
off
in
the.
the presentation. My
Yeah.
bad. I jumped around the map.
That's okay. Let me see. We did anyone can buy property. We did, we talked about FERPA's. I think I did the example of knowing your business beforehand and whether it's viable here. So many people come up with ideas that are not practical. I don't know if I talked about the ice palace that they created in the tropics. The cruise ships come in Alaska and then down here. So when it's off season in Alaska, they come down here and vice versa. And I think somebody decided that an ice palace would be a good business concept here. And so they took an existing building, lowered the temperature in it so that they could support like an ice bar. A slab of ice is the bar, and they had the drinks poured over ice that came down and you caught it in a glass. And of course, since it's freezing temperatures inside, you had to wear coats. So they had to provide coats because most people here are walking down the streets in flip-flops and shorts. So to come in and be in the business and be comfortable, they had to provide them coats. And even before COVID, nobody wants to share coats with 100 people. Anyway, it was a horrible, horrible idea. So my big thing there is whatever idea that you come up with for business, research it carefully, make sure it's a practical business here. That didn't stay open an entire season before it was closed. And put aside a chunk of money, estimate your expenses, and at least double what you think your expenses are going to have it on hand, because things aren't going to go as smoothly. And I think this is generally going into business and new business anywhere, not going to go the way that you initially planned them. So you need to have the resources to go through times that you may have delays and unexpected things that need to be done. The essential connections with the EDA. We covered that. You ask about health services. And I don't know if I mentioned that doctors that come down, they sometimes build their own facilities. There's a orthopedic surgeon that came down and actually built like his own little operating room and everything in because he was having trouble. The hospital wasn't able to maintain optimal operating temperatures. So he built his own operating room and does his own surgery in his own operating room because he can control everything. And doctors do often either build out or build their own facilities. We already talked about and the only other, well, that was part of my presentation. We did the.
While you're looking through, you mentioned the challenge of wiring the older buildings.
Yes.
Is how the more modern construction, how do they juggle the wiring and buildings that are that withstand the hurricane?
Well, I think for the most part, people are building with concrete. There are wooden homes that do very well in hurricanes, but for the majority of people, I think they build in concrete. And then that's about planning with your contractor. And well, from the point of drawings, planning, installing those, whether it's plumbing or wiring and all of that before you start pouring concrete so that you have those situated in the forms and whatnot. And you're not drilling holes in concrete after the fact. So it's part of the building process. And I was talking to a customer of mine is big equipment operator and builder here. And he was saying how also just being familiar with the land and knowing people like to cantilever properties to have that amazing view over the water. And you have to make sure that the earth is not going to shift and take your cantilevered balcony down the hill with it over time as it rains and things like that. So building is not simple. You need to have structural engineer as well as architect and all of that to build here. And not
Awesome.
have to worry about it sliding down the hill, because there's a lot of hills here.
Okay, great. I think we covered most of our talking points.
Yes.
Let's see how we have quite a few questions from the audience. Let's get into
Yeah,
that.
let's
Okay.
take some questions now.
Okay.
Gary?
Yes.
Okay.
So our first question is, what visas are required to own a permanent residence in the U.S. Virgin Islands?
There's no visa required to own a permanent residence. I mean, if you're, because you could come and go, it's the same as moving to the mainland. If you are from a country that would require you to have a visa to come into the mainland, it would be the same thing here. But foreign people don't have to be permanent citizens to own property.
Okay. I have a country music buff. Does Kenny Chesney still live on St. John?
He does indeed. And he was one of the heroes in the hurricane. He was really great about flying in a lot of supplies and building materials and essentials and all of that after the hurricane to St. John. And Duncan, the basketball player, was from St.
Tim
Croix.
Duncan,
And
yep.
yes, he did the same thing on St. Croix. He bought in diapers and bottles and, essential stuff for people just to live, to exist. We had several heroes like that. Yes.
Awesome. So how much would a 2-bedroom condo, walking distance to the beach, what would be that price range, and what are the property taxes and or an HOA?
Those are interesting questions. So for a 2-bedroom, so many of them, we have a lot of condos that are small, that are like 1 bedroom with Murphy beds in the living room, so that you can fit more people into them. But a true 2-bedroom is probably going to start in the high 3s and can go up to 500,000 easily. And what was the second part of that question? Sorry.
Taxes and HOA.
Oh, HOAs, probably on that level of condo, you're talking $1,200 to $1,500 a month. Taxes are, I'm trying to remember. It depends upon the value. Again, it would be a percentage of the value of the condo. And I don't know off the top of my head what each step is.
So basically the average price of a condo is in that 300,000 to 500,000 range?
2-bedroom, yes. Yeah, you can, like the 1-bedrooms with the Murphy beds, you probably could get under 300,000. The efficiencies, about 200,000. There are some that are less, that are like 150 and up, but they're in lesser attractive complexes.
Gotcha. So what would the average rent for an investment property that was costing that $2 million with that view? What would the average rent for that be?
Okay, that's the one thing. The average rent is, I had one example I was going to use, a house that I sold to someone. It was a 5-bedroom home, had astounding water views of infinity edge pool, acre of grounds. It now rents for $1,685 a night. I have statistics on what it's making a year. It's a great investment. You're netting about $550,000 a year with it. Person that bought it paid cash for it. It was 2.1 million. And it's made fabulous money for the owner. And during the hurricane, after the hurricane, most of those houses were occupied by relief workers that came in, the work crews.
Okay.
There was a lot of money made then, huge money.
So For investors who are interested, how long does it take to get materials onto the island?
It depends upon if you're buying a whole lot at a time or whether you're just bringing in a few things. I tend to, it's easy to like buy supplies from Home Depot, have them delivered to Miami, the port of Miami, and then there are shippers that ship from Miami here. And that's the quickest way to get things. And it's better to buy all you need at one time and do one huge bulk shipping of your supplies than it is to piecemeal it. So, and the exact cost, I can't tell you that, and that's going to fluctuate with demand. Like right after a hurricane, it's going to be expensive.
Right.
Yeah, and hard to get supplies.
Understood.
Yeah.
How does insurance work for healthcare?
Pretty much like the States. Same thing. We have Blue Cross Blue Shield. We have private providers. There are social services here for people who can't afford things. I'm not sure the coverage is real great, but it's not real great on the mainland for those people that can't afford insurance either. But your main carriers from the mainland generally are accepted here. You may have to go through an additional step to process your claim because they'll say, we don't know who this is and we can't honor this. And then you have to produce papers and you just have to go through a little extra step to get reimbursed by your insurance company. But generally, most of them are acknowledged here. We have a Walgreens. You can get your prescriptions and all that good stuff here. We have other named, not recognizable name brands of pharmacies and things here that, you can get those services here too.
Does the U.S. Virgin Islands have real estate licensee reciprocity with the northern states?
Reciprocity in that we will do referrals, but you don't automatically get your license because you're licensed on the mainland. You have to sit for because there are a lot of laws and regulations that are different here. We have coastal zone issues because we're surrounded by water and stuff like that. So you would still have to sit for your license when you came down again. If you were licensed on the mainland, you'd have to sit for the exam.
Okay. Are there restrictions on the type of financing accepted?
No different from what they are on the mainland. So if you can find a house that will qualify for VA and FHA, so I guess I should qualify that because I've done exactly one VA loan since I've been here, and usually it's about the property. It's not about the person or their credit worthiness or anything like that. It's the property doesn't conform. VA and FHA have very strict requirements that the property has to meet. And because building is oftentimes unique, you can't find like a tract of 20 houses that are all exactly the same like you can in the States. A developer builds and the door may be on this side, but the floor plan is basically the same as the house next door. You don't have that. So each house is unique and builders do different things, and VA and FHA are just very hard to do here.
Okay. Do you have many real estate agents from the stateside come over to try to sell in U.S. Virgin Islands?
In fact, most of the licensed real estate agents are from the States, and it causes a little bit of animosity. But yeah, there are a lot that come, and everybody thinks they're going to be great at real estate. That a lot of them are not successful because real estate is not an easy industry, as you know, because it's self-motivated. And if you don't have that get up and go and you don't work at the networking and follow up and all that good stuff, you're not going to be successful. But most of the people that are licensed as realtors here are probably mainlanders or from someplace else originally, but they may have been here, 30 years. So.
Okay. So what is St. Thomas doing for COVID and tourists that are flying in?
They're requiring they have tests within a few days. I think it's like 3 to 5 days before they leave that are negative to come in. And if you don't have a negative test result, then you have to quarantine. And then that's supposed to be 14 days. I have to admit, I don't think they monitor that very closely. It would be hard to enforce. But that's the regulation on it
Okay.
officially.
Can a resident open a juice or tiki bar on any beach in St. John? Furthermore, during doing business on a beach, is it legal, and who owns the beach?
Some beaches are privately owned, some of them are not. So it's not a one pat answer. St. John in particular, I do not really do real estate on St. John. It's very restrictive because most of it is natural parks, especially the beaches. So I would guess that no, you could not open a tiki bar on most of St. John's beaches. They're very pristine and beautiful. There may be a snack bar or something not too far from the water. But on the beach itself, I would say no.
Okay. Do a majority of buyers purchase as a permanent or vacation?
It's split. I would say the majority of the buyers are probably vacation homes, a second home. And so there's some component of renting and income.
So are there management companies for part-time owners, and how does that work?
There are management companies, and everybody who's in real estate manages some properties because you sell them to people and then they're like, oh, will you manage it for me? So, and you've gotten them into it. So you want to help them be successful with owning this property also. Usually for like the condos and smaller properties, it's a 25% fee. It's a tremendous amount of work. I manage a few properties, and a number of the properties and condos are older properties. So there's a lot of maintenance, and sometimes it becomes very large maintenance issues. I had one condo that I work with that they drilled holes into the upper floor to support stairwell that they were renovating, replacing because it had rusted out. So they drilled in to put a new stairwell in. They did not caulk the holes that they drilled, so water was coming in to the interior wall, and the building was a steel frame building with mesh and concrete plaster on the outside and Durarock on the inside. Somebody did some construction on their unit and discovered that the steel beams were seriously rusting on the buildings. So then they had to go into every condo on the first floor, rip out. Most of them have the Murphy beds in their cabinets built against that wall, that exterior wall. And so they had to be ripped out first, and then the wall had to be ripped out, and then the steel beams, if they needed to be replaced, had to be replaced. And this is all the association has to do because it's a condo, you own the inside, you don't own the outside, and they screwed it up anyway. But then your rentals are interrupted while they're doing this work, and they did it very efficiently, I have to say. They did it very quickly. And then you've got to put everything back together afterwards. And so I hope that answers the question.
What would you say is the average weekly rental for the three major islands?
That's hard because you have such variety. I mean, from a studio apartment that somebody is renting out to the 5-bedroom villa that's getting $1,685 a night, or a studio that's renting for $95 a night. So to say the average rental is
Too hard to
say. I mean, it depends. Yeah, there's a wide range. Yeah.
Are there hot months for vacation investment?
Hot months for vacation investment. I'm not, you're talking about like vacation condos or?
I think that's what the question.
Yeah, when is your high season?
High season is the cold months up north. So it starts late October and goes to April, like early April, because April is when we have our carnivals. So a lot of people come home for carnival, and a lot of things are closed for carnival. So it's not for people who want to have things, because it's not going to happen snap, snap like that. You have to be in a Caribbean mode to enjoy carnival time. So it's usually a lot of people are coming home and enjoying carnival, and it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of partying. So that's when the season slows down.
Explain to us what's Caribbean mode.
Manana. You
It took,
can't get upset when you don't get what you want immediately. You just have to say, oh, well, and, drink another
No
rum
wonder.
punch and move on.
I have 3 grown kids that were born here, and
Uh-huh.
tried to get them to visit the island, and they wouldn't. And the first time Jerome went home, he didn't want to leave. He's amazed how people are laid back. And
Yes.
and that comes with a price, because when
Yes, it
you as
does.
a tourist go to the island and you want something, you want it now, especially
Yeah.
as New Yorkers. In the
You
Caribbean,
get-
you're gonna have to wait and do it on their time. And it's a
Right.
good thing,
It's
because
on
we're here to
island
relax.
time.
Absolutely.
It's called island time. And as a
So
Yankee
island time.
transplant, it's a process of learning that, and because they call Northerners from the mainland Yankees, regardless of whether
Mhm.
you're from Alabama or New York, it doesn't matter, you're a Yankee, which does annoy some people from the South. But anyway, it's just, you have to make that adjustment, and you will only frustrate yourself tremendously if you don't make that adjustment. You just have to take a deep breath and say, okay, that's a small price to live in the beauty and the warmth, and the warmth of people, and the camaraderie and all of that. It's a very small price to pay, in my opinion.
Absolutely.
Clayton, we're almost out of time, but I
Oh,
did
okay.
want you to ask Ms. Tanya question number 14 and number 7 before we wrap up.
Okay. Let me see if I can find them.
this-
Did I number them? 14, main factor focus for better advice.
No.
No, that's not it.
No, I mean, if you want, I'll
Okay.
just ask you. I have it right here. As a
Okay.
Go for
certified
it.
property specialist, CIPS,
Uh-huh.
describe for our audience the benefits of the certification and how it
Okay.
has affected your business on a local and a global level.
Okay, the main thing with CIPS is you get training that give you
Mhm.
skills that better
Mhm.
enable you to service your clients and customers. And so you're a more professional person, a better informed person. And so that helps you. Then it also allows you to build networks with people who can refer business to you. And for all those people that are out there, I'd love to be your Virgin Islands connection. If you have customers that want to come this way, this is a blatant solicitation
have
of
a
business.
slide?
This is a
I'm
blatant
happy
plug.
to take
Just
care of
say
your
right, go right
customers
to it.
in this area.
Do we have a slide with your information on it, Tanya?
I beg your pardon?
Do we have a slide with your information on it?
No, I didn't. I did not supply
But that's
that.
okay. I think Kathleen and Gary will be able to go ahead and make sure that all of our participants, if they like, they'll be able to get Ms. Coleman's information and her email and
Okay.
phone number and all of that jazz.
Yeah.
I think also since this is a commercial platform and we appreciate you joining us, I want to just kind of go back around because I think Clayton touched upon this, but I want you to go a little bit more in depth.
Okay.
Describe for our audience the difference in the typical commercial rental market in the U.S. Virgin Islands compared to the U.S. commercial rental
Okay.
market that we have here, like let's say in Westchester County.
We don't have a lot of inventory of stuff
Mhm.
that isn't your usual, jewelry store downtown or bar or restaurant. That's probably the biggest difference. And what's there, you're probably going to have to renovate. We didn't see the pictures of the property of the shared workspace.
Yeah, we're going to run
okay.
through. I mean, if any other
Right.
things that you want to run through, you just can.
Yeah. Well, this is an example of what you're going to find when you go looking for office space in St. Thomas. So it's dated, it's the old soft, the low ceilings with the ducted air conditioning. It's not bad, but it's not pretty. It's not a great work experience for people. And the ladies came in. She's originally out of Trinidad, Jennifer Sequoia. I tried to get her to, she had meetings today. She couldn't be here. That's Jennifer. And her
So this looks very
partner,
modernized.
this is the renovation. That's that same space you just saw in the previous
Gotcha.
pictures.
Okay, so this is
They
a before
gutted
and after.
that. Yes, exactly. And it took us a long time to identify this space. And she and her architect and her builder worked for a long time to make it. You can see it has offices down the side, so it's a shared workspace, and also focuses on improving your entire being. So you've got a conference room that is glass but can be closed off for privacy. If you're holding meetings, you can come in and rent those office spaces individually, or have a conference, have a function there in the evening if you wanted to. They also incorporated healthy aspects. They have aerial aerobics there. This is more of the shared workspace, so that you can just come in and use the internet, pay to use the internet and the facilities there and at one of the tables. And there's enough space so that you can do safe distancing in this facility, because it's very large, as you can see. But there's the aerial aerobics that they have available. You can schedule massages and aerial aerobics sessions there also. They have seminars on nutrition and health and all types of things. It's sort of an all-encompassing opportunity there.
What is the typical price per square foot for a commercial space like what you just did? There isn't?
Right,
Okay.
there is no, because she had to build that out. She had to come out of pocket and build that out. So to translate that, I can't even imagine what she ended up paying price per square foot on that one. There is no typical price per square foot. It's sort of whatever the landlord wants, and often they're not making any changes. If you want it, you make your changes to it with my approval, and that's that. So there's a lot of empty commercial space that is old and needs a lot of money poured into it. That was one of her biggest challenges, is she found space that would work for her, even on ground floor levels, but that's on the second floor. But the landlord was not willing to help her with the renovations, any part, or even stuff that obviously he's going to, or she is going to benefit from having the improvement done to their property once she leaves.
Okay. And the last point, I think Clayton touched upon it, was the EB5 program. And I think one of our audience participants was asking questions like if they wanted to do like a tiki bar or something like that on one of the islands. And in my research, and one of the questions that you had in advance, and I wanted our audience to know this, that folks who are not from the Caribbean are surprised to find out that they can't pursue full-time formal work while they are on any Caribbean island. There are over 7,000 islands in the Caribbean regions permit foreigners to buy property, stay for a certain period of time, but few will allow you to work. In the Bahamas, for example, you can get a homeowner's permit so you can legally stay on the property. On the other hand, in the island of Turks and Caicos, the government will grant a foreigner a visa good for a 5-year period, provided he or she can do the work that an island national cannot perform. How is the same purchasing property in the U.S. Virgin Islands? And I think, Clayton may have touched upon it, but I wanted to make sure that that's clear and that our audience members who are not from the Caribbean understand that.
Right, you can work here. It doesn't, as long as you have the skills and you have the license and you get your health certificate or whatever else is required, without a problem. That's not a restriction on St. Thomas. If you can qualify for the job, if you can qualify for the job. Now, will you get hired? Especially if there is, and I mean no offense to anyone, especially if there's a local person doing the hiring. I'll give you a perfect example. The job that I did before I came to St. Thomas, I was an administrator for Drug Enforcement Task Force in Chicago, regionally, reporting statistics. The same job became available here. I had it for 11 years, had an outstanding performance appraisal. The certification for it occurred in DC as who was qualified. I came out #1 on the list nationally, everybody who applied. I did not get an interview Because I had
Wow.
like a year and a half left to get my 20 years in. I didn't really want to, make a career of it. I just wanted to
That's
finish
with the
up my
State
studies.
Department. Is that not correct? That's with the State
The
Department?
U.S. Attorney's Office,
U.S. Attorney's
DOJ,
Office. Okay.
DOJ, yeah. And the person doing the hiring, I knew him well, and I approached him and he said, well, I have to recuse myself because I know you. Guess who got the job? His cousin.
Yeah. Yeah.
So there's no formal prohibition, but
Right.
it was, and I'm not
I hear
mad
you.
at it because there's not as many opportunities here.
Mm-hmm.
So I understand looking out for people who don't have the chance or choice sometimes to leave, either because of family obligations, you're married, you have kids, you're ingrained here.
Right.
People that
Wow.
pick up and move at will and go different
Mhm.
places because they want to, and we did
Wow.
transfer here. My husband worked for the federal government. He's a federal prosecutor, which is how we met in the Chicago area. But he was employed here with the federal government and then took a position overseas. He was in Iraq and did some time there
Wow.
while I was here.
Clayton, do you have any more questions? Because we're getting ready to wrap up and end the
Okay,
program.
you know something? I would love Tanya to share with us. We discussed briefly on our call hotel investments on the island.
What kind of investments? I'm sorry?
Hotels.
Hotels. Oh, yes, there are the large hotels are slowly coming back. Most of them closed down. The Ritz, the Marriott, and the Wyndham all closed down after the storm. Most of them shifted over to their timeshare properties or bought timeshare properties because I think Wyndham purchased what used to be Blackbeard's timeshares on the beach, on Lime Tree Beach, and it's now a Wyndham property. Those are all up and running. The hotels are still in the process of coming back. The Ritz just got named as the best new hotel in the Caribbean. And I think they're opening, they either have opened or will be open very soon. The hotel that was a Wyndham, they're still working on, and I'm not sure who owns it. And the same thing with the Marriott, the Frenchman's Reef at their timeshare portion stayed open the entire time. It was their newest section. It was their newest building, and it survived very well during the hurricane. And a lot of times companies take advantage of the storm just to, or capitalize on, well, it's damaged, so we want to do some major renovations. We'll just take the time, use the insurance money and bring it back and take our time bringing it back how we want to. There are a number of smaller hotels, sort of bed and breakfast places. 1928 is a historical bed and breakfast. Crystal, I forget what it's called exactly. There's another bed and breakfast place that has been open for many years. Those are for sale now. So if somebody wanted to be a hotelier or to have a larger bed and breakfast place, there are opportunities like that here. They're probably going to require some serious renovations. We had, things like people took advantage of the hurricane, and well, there's one place that I believe they set fire to just to get insurance after the hurricane didn't quite destroy it. And they've been trying to sell it for years and didn't have any success. And then the hurricane hit. And then shortly after that, oops, there goes a fire and it's gone. And I'm sure they got some good insurance. Funny how that happens. But anyway.
Wow.
Yeah, and I probably shouldn't be saying those things out loud, but it's true. It's true. And that was actually a fairly historical place. It had some very interesting architecture, but it was in the wrong side of town too. It wasn't doing well because people were afraid to go there, to stay there any length of time. So they'd sort of reached the end of their term, I guess. Had tried to sell it and were not successful. So.
Okay.
Awesome.
Any other questions, Clayton? Or from our
I'm
audience?
complete. I see there's 6 in the queue. Do we have, Gary, is there any there that is worth throwing out quickly?
I think we're pretty good at this point.
Awesome.
But I have many people who would like to be your assistant.
Oh, I need one actually. That's one of the hardest things to get here is because everybody wants to be a realtor and even then I don't think people realize how independently driven you have to be successful in real estate and the hours that we actually work. I don't think they have any idea. You have to love
Wow.
what you do.
Well, we want to thank everyone for joining today's Zoom webinar, and let us extend a great round of applause for our keynote speaker, Ms. Tanya Van Blake Coleman, and for giving us a wealth of knowledge of the U.S. Virgin Islands and the Caribbean marketplace. We also want to thank our guest moderator for today's program, friends and colleague Clayton Jeffries. Thank you for so much for agreeing to participate as our guest moderator. You did a phenomenal job,
Thank you.
And I'm sure you made Miss Blake Coleman, who was nervous at first, feel right at home.
Yes, I was
You give
scared
that
to death,
island
and he
charm,
did
and I
make me
just knew it
feel
would
really
work.
comfortable.
Thank you.
Yes,
I'm
thank
so
you,
happy to
Clayton.
hear that. Listen, Women in Commercial Real Estate will hopefully continue to provide programming that is a diverse, a benefit for your business, and for showcasing an overall awareness of the commercial marketplace. As HGERCID is currently being revamped, it has been an honor and a privilege to serve as creator and chair for this initiative. And I'm so happy that so many people have really cheered us on and have supported us, and men have joined us and been behind us. And we're just really, really so thankful. My fondest wish and intent was to create a platform for women by women in all diverse backgrounds and segments of the commercial real estate marketplace that has been heavily dominated by males, but they have now come around and they have supported women because our voices are just as important, and we're in there doing business. And we so appreciate it. They believed in us. They believed in the big picture of this initiative, and it's necessary and timely. No one knows what the future holds. So until we meet again, or if we meet again, we wish everyone wellness, safety, a healthy, happy, and prosperous 2021. Everyone have a great, great day.
Awesome.
Take care.
Thank you.
Well.
Awesome
Thank you.
job.
Have a great day, everybody. Enjoy.